Hi everyone, here's what's bothering me today. You know how here in Canada we recently had this apparently very necessary and super urgent pandemic election, even though the guy who called it, unnecessarily I might add, had the audacity to say, yes, Canadians don't want an election during a pandemic, but I gotta kind of justify this blatant power grab. And now, since effectively losing, let's be real here, there were no winners from this Canadian election because everything has basically just been the same as how it was before. But what's interesting is that in the wake of all that talk of this is necessary, it's urgent to try and, get things done and no, stymieing from opposition. There's so much we need to do, right? That was the whole thing. It was, we got to do a lot of work. We got to really get support out there to Canadians without opposition from the opposition parties. That was basically been the gist of everything in the lead up to the election, right? Well, then someone please explain to me why we have to wait until November for Parliament to return. That is kind of sketchy, or to use modern parlance, a little sus. Why on earth, if everything was so urgent, Mr. Trudeau, are you now waiting until November for Parliament to return? If things are so urgent and action needs to be taken, why are you taking 2 months to do anything? But you know what the kicker is here, folks? This isn't even actually what I wanted to talk about. What spurred me to make this video was the latest development in this incidence of just liberal ridiculousness. And that is the fact that today there was an interesting article from the Globe and Mail. Trudeau Liberals limit scrutiny with fewer sitting days in the House. That's right, Justin Trudeau has decided that on top of wasting everyone's time with an expensive and unnecessary pandemic election where fundamentally nothing changed, and then also saying, well, okay, so yeah, I know we said we really got to get back to work to help Canadians, but I'm going to wait 2 months for that to happen. He is now also making it so that when Parliament does return, there are less actual sitting days for Parliament to try and get the job done that he claimed was so necessary to do. As opposition members rightly state in this article, MPs say debate over the extension of pandemic supports for businesses and individuals is urgent now. Rent and wage support programs for businesses and direct income support for individuals who can't work because of COVID-19 are set to expire on October 23rd. Cabinet has the power to extend them until November 20th, but any additional changes or extensions would require parliamentary approval. Oh, right. Yeah, CERB, that other new thing that replaced the CERB that lots of Canadians still really need to get by, that expires near the end of the month. And there's Trudeau saying, no, we're not even going to get back to work until nearly a month later. So here's this jackass talking about we really got to help Canadians and opposition just isn't working for us. That's why, you should totally reward us in this unnecessary election with a majority so we can get things done. Well, look, Mr. Oh, it's so important. Canadians are so important to me. I really got to get this help out to Canadians because I care, right? I'm literally supposed to be a bleeding heart liberal, correct? Well, no. This CRB program and various other programs and pandemic-related supports are ending a month before the expected return of Parliament, which will then also have fewer sitting days. So much for urgency in actually helping Canadians through a pandemic. Now, unfortunately, this whole less sitting of Parliament is a trend that has been happening for a while now. Recent low numbers of parliamentary sitting days under the Liberals continue a clear downward trend over the past few decades, according to a Globe and Mail review of historical data. To date this year, the House of Commons has sat for 76 days. 20 more sitting days are scheduled before the end of the year, which would bring the total to 96. The House sat for 86 days in 2020 and 75 days in 2019. It sat for 122 days in 2018, the last full year that the Trudeau government had a majority. Basically, the sittings in Parliament peaked during the civil rights era of the 60s and early 70s, and it's been on this steady downhill trend ever since. So unfortunately, and also to cut off what would surely be an attempted Liberal partisan point, no, the lower sittings in Parliament is not exclusively a Justin Trudeau failure. Instead, it is a continuation of failures by our political leadership, be it Team Red or Team Blue, to continue to lessen the amount of time and voices that get to be heard in Parliament, the supposed hall of democracy where we the people are supposedly represented. And that is still, for me, the focus of all of this, where Mr. Trudeau, who calls an election, an unnecessary election, during a pandemic, purely for a political power grab to try and do and push through, no doubt, very terrible, awful policies and cuts, all while blaming the opposition, and has the media basically try and spin it that, oh yeah, it's totally a clear mandate, when fundamentally nothing changed. That is not a ringing endorsement. And on top of that, he has the audacity, while campaigning and in the lead up to the election, saying, this is about helping Canadians, and we gotta, you just need to give us more power so we can get this support to you faster because we care. And yet here he is, openly letting supports expire while also having the audacity to say, I know we said everything was urgent, but I'm not sitting Parliament for 8 weeks after the election. That is 2 months of inaction while supports and programs lapse, which negatively impact hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Canadians. And he's also coming back with even less sitting days in Parliament. Please tell me again how this man is in any way progressive and cares about the Canadian people. This man does not deserve power, but unfortunately in what passes for democracy in this country, he has it, and he is allowed to do this. And if you can't tell, that is absolutely what's bothering me today.